Well, warmest greetings to you, and welcome to another episode of Just a Few. My name is Patrick Antoine. Thank you for joining me on this platform, and it allows me the opportunity to provide biblical responses to questions from people like you. And if you have a question, I'll provide you an email address that you can direct that question at me. It's on the screen, and I'll try to provide you the response as soon as I can. Let me get straight into today's question, which has to do with two ancient cities mentioned from Genesis all the way through the Bible, Sodom and Gomorrah. The question is, what sin were Sodom and Gomorrah judged for? Good question. To some people, the answer to that might be, well, sort of obvious, but to others in our liberal world today, there have been different twists on this, and different suggestions have been given. To provide a bit of context, just in case there's someone viewing this who may not be familiar with what happened with the wrath of God in Sodom and Gomorrah, I'll just read the opening verses of the 19th chapter of the book of Genesis, because that's where the context is set for what happened to Sodom and Gomorrah. So it says, now the two angels, God sent two angels to bring judgment upon these cities. Now the two angels came to Sodom in the evening, and Lot, the nephew of Abraham, was sitting in the gate of Sodom. When Lot saw them, he rose to meet them. Typical hospitality of that age and even our age in the Middle East. And he bowed himself with his face toward the ground. He's not worshiping, he's just showing respect and welcoming these two guests. And he said, "Here now, my lords or sirs, please turn into your servant's house and spend the night, and wash your feet, then you may rise early and go on your way." And they said, "No, but we will spend the night in the open square." But he insisted strongly, so they turned into him and entered his house. Then he made them a feast and baked unleavened bread, and they ate or ate. Now, before they lay down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, both old and young, and all the people from every quarter surrounded the house. Picture the scene, if you would. And they called to Lot and said to him, "Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us that we may know them carnally." And that word "know" is a Hebrew word that is found also in Genesis 4. With Adam knew his wife and she conceived. So it's a word that connotes sexual intercourse, that we may know them. Today in our culture we talk about, in legal circles, unlawful carnal knowledge meaning to know someone sexually. So eventually judgment came upon those cities, and this last verse there, verse 5, provides us a bit of an understanding of why the judgment of God came. Now, however, in our liberalized world, those who think that we are misunderstanding the Bible and the wrath of God against, let's say, homosexuality, say that no, that's not the reason why Sodom and Gomorrah were judged. They said that Lot showed hospitality to the people of these two men, typical Middle Eastern hospitality, but the people from Sodom who came and surrounded the house did not show hospitality to these strangers, and that's why God's wrath came upon them. You will hear that argument by those who have this use the word gay or same-sex union type of they don't like when you use the word agenda, but support, let's use that word. So one passage that is turned to support that type of position, that it was because of a lack of kindness and hospitality shown to these angels. That's why, and they didn't even know they were angels in the first place. But that one passage is Ezekiel 16, verse 49, but I'll read that, and verse 50. And here Ezekiel was likening the cities of Jerusalem, the capital of the southern kingdom, and Samaria, the capital of the northern part of Israel. They were likening them because of their wickedness to Sodom and Gomorrah. He wasn't really speaking about Sodom and Gomorrah. He was likening Israel to Sodom and Gomorrah. And so some people use this to say, this is really what Sodom and Gomorrah, what their offense was, without going to verse 50. So let me just read, time is upon me. Look, this was the iniquity of your sister Sodom, these two cities, Jerusalem and Samaria. She and her daughter, meaning the people who live there, had pride, fullness of food, and abundance of idleness. Neither did she strengthen the hand of the poor and needy. He's speaking there about Israel. You know what happens when society becomes affluent, and we say people who they're too happy, as we say in our culture, they find themselves doing all types of things with their money and their affluence and all types of ridiculous lifestyles. Well, that's what was happening in Israel. That doesn't mean that's what the sin of Sodom and Gomorrah were. This was just a symptom of a deeper malady that was afflicting that society and the society in the days of Ezekiel. Verse 50 goes on, and this is where you need to pay attention. And they were haughty and committed abomination before me. Therefore I took them away as I saw fit. God says it's the abominations they committed because of their idleness and their pride, their abundance. They were so wealthy. And today we see the wealthy western part of the world, well, almost like trying to impose and force a pro same-sex union agenda upon smaller countries, actually forcing other cultures, to try to legitimize things that those cultures have been trying for centuries to free themselves from. And they see it as really as a threat to their very existence as cultures. But we're not going to deal with that now. So I believe the answer to what happened at Sodom and Gomorrah is in verse 50 there, but even more forcefully so in the New Testament book of Jude verse 7. And let me read that in closing. This is where we find a clear biblical position on what was going on in Sodom and Gomorrah. Jude says, as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities around them in a similar manner to these false teachers Jude was talking about, having given themselves over to sexual immorality. Not only that, he says, and gone after strange flesh. They are set forth as an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire. Jude is very clear. He said Sodom and Gomorrah, he's not saying it, the pride and the affluence, and I mean, it was a very affluent society. That's why Lot went down there, because he saw how affluent life was there, and he didn't realize how wicked they were. This led to sexual immorality. That sexual immorality that Jude mentions there included fornication and homosexuality, and then he goes on to add, and they have gone after strange flesh. What does he mean by gone after strange flesh? It seems as if Sodom and Gomorrah also engaged and were engrossed in bestiality also, leaving the flesh of each other as human beings, man with woman. They went with man with men, a sexual perversion which is called abominations, and then even with strange flesh. It's not the flesh of these angels. They didn't even know those were angels. It seemed as if bestiality was involved too in Sodom and Gomorrah. So Sodom and Gomorrah went beyond sexual immorality. And throughout Scripture, they are used as the ultimate example of God's wrath against abominations. So they gave themselves over to bestiality, it would seem, and so they paid the ultimate price. And that's what the sins of those nations, those cities were. Sexual perversion of all forms, and God judged them for it. So that's my answer to that question, and I hope it helps you in some way. My name is Patrick Antoine. Thank you again for allowing me the opportunity to provide a response. So until the next time, grace and peace be multiplied to you.